Hello and welcome to Lesson 7 of the UNIDO SPX programme, Monitoring Tools and Staff Building. This lesson will deal with basic tools of improvement. We'll present on check sheets, run charts and people development, and builds upon previous lessons already presented. For the basic tools of improvement, the UNIDO system has identified 5 fundamental tools to help you build your competitiveness and your capacity. The first of those, presented in Lesson 6, was called Process Flow Mapping. It helped you to identify what are you doing. The second fundamental tool was that of Physical Flow Mapping. It provided you an opportunity to see how are you doing what you do. In this lesson, we will move on to talk about check sheets, a simple tool and mechanism to help you identify what is going right or going wrong in your business. We will talk about run charts, a way of you being able to see as a manager, a leader, if your operation is getting better or getting worse, and also providing an opportunity to your people to see the same thing. And we will conclude the lesson with the segment on teams, releasing the power of your people. How you can, as a leader, as a manager in your company, build the capacity of your people so that they can work with you to achieve improvements in competitiveness and capability for your business going into the future. Check sheet. We will start with looking at what is a check sheet. A check sheet is a way to help you capture the information of what is happening within your business. To use a check sheet successfully, you must firstly define what is being recorded. There are so many things happening in a business every day. It can be difficult to identify what is important and what is relevant. It is always helpful to think, what does your customer think is important? What does your customer think is relevant? And armed with that information, you can then ask yourself, and what is relevant for you, for your company, for your people, for your business? As with all things with the UNIDO SPX system, partnership is important. It is not good enough just to focus on the needs of your customer unless you're also addressing the needs of you, your team and your business. So when starting with a check sheet, it's important to define what is being recorded. It's secondly important to define over what time period. The time period chosen depends on how rapidly changing your business is. In some businesses, management capture the information from their processes on an hourly basis, on a daily basis, a weekly or a monthly basis, depending on how much information is to be gathered, how much it changes over time, and also very much dependent on how responsive the business is to demands and changes from the customers. So when deciding to create a check sheet, it's important to identify what the time period will be that's relevant to you and your needs. It's important to make it easy to record data. Sometimes people can overcomplicate a system, can try to capture too much information, too much data with a single piece of paper or a single data capture system. Sometimes people can make it very difficult for their workers or their staff to capture the data. In my own experience, when I started on the lean journey, the best practice journey many years ago, it was thought that a diary was the most effective way to have people working on a production line to capture the issues that happened to them on their daily basis. The problem was, however, that most of the people I had working with and for me were not very interested or committed to writing down the detail of what happened, when, and what were the issues, what was the consequence of the problem. So we very seldom captured enough information to allow us to identify the real cause of problems or to find ways to improve the processes. This in turn led me to understanding and using check sheets in my operating environment. We will see how the check sheet makes it easy for our staff, your staff, our people to record data that can be used by the management team and the workers to help them improve their process. One of the major points that people face when introducing data capture to a production environment or to an office environment is ensuring the data is recorded honestly. What do we mean? Many people do not like to say there was a problem, do not like to say something went wrong, do not like to say I received something bad from my friend or colleague who is producing up the line in their business. So with the best will and consideration for others, often the data is not recorded honestly. There is a problem in that instance because if the data is not recorded completely and honestly, it is very hard to identify the real cause of the issues. And on this point, we believe that the system should be understood by everybody, not to cause a problem for individuals, but that the systems of check sheets and the tools of improvement are used to help make the business better, the full business better, and not just to identify people that may have issues. So, a lot of time should be spent with your people explaining the reason for capturing the information, why it's important, and how it is going to help secure the business and their jobs as you improve your capabilities. We present you an example of a check sheet. The check sheet on the left-hand side of the sheet has a series of items that happen in an environment in a given day. We're using in this example an office type environment as opposed to a manufacturing environment. So if one of our office staff is working in the environment and we want to see how many issues or problems they have during the day, we could create a check sheet just like this. Telephone rang 4 times. I had 3 visitors. There were several emails. A new query arrived in. Something was wrong that had to be reworked, or another reason happened. My name and the date. If this is for a 1-day or a 1-hour analysis, it can be decided the date and the time. If we were to look at this piece of information without knowing what the source of the work was, we could immediately begin to see that this particular problem or this particular activity, the email in this case, actually happened more than anything else. By simply looking at the number of marks on the right-hand side of the check sheet, we can identify which things happened most, which issues or which pieces of work happened most. A problem that most people encounter when they start to introduce a check sheet is they will try to have too many items on the sheet. Companies have put in 10, 15, 20 items that cause problems on the sheet, and then they find that they have too many and it becomes too complicated for their people to actually record the data. Our suggestion would be talk to the person who is doing the work, try to think between you and them what are the key things that happen, and pick 5 to 7 of those items and put them onto the sheet, the check sheet. Always put in, we suggest, a category called Other, so that if none of these things happen, or not many of these things happen and other things happen, you can create, we actually understand now that we did not have the right things on the top part of the check sheet. But you can see, I hope, from this simple graphic that by simply looking at the number of times something happened, we can quickly identify the main things that occurred in that person's work in that day. In reality, these items on the left-hand side of the page would be written or typed, printed, and these marks would be simply made by a stroke of a pen. It allows simple capture of the data. In a manufacturing environment, we have a similar number of items down the left-hand side, including other, that are relevant to this particular type of manufacturing. And once again, every time a misfeed happens, a simple mark is made on the page. If we look again at the data that has been captured from the process, we will see that foot gap, this item here, happened much more than angle or length or burr or straightener, these other issues. We begin to be able to prioritize the issues based on their frequency. However, there is a point of caution here, and it's the balance between capturing how frequently something happened and the scale of the consequence of that happening. In this next graphic, we have taken on the left-hand side the items that happen. We have recorded the number of occurrences, but we have also tried to identify how much time was lost from the manufacturing environment due to these things happening. So we have balanced the data with the significance of the data. And we move on now to analyze that. And we can now see if we order the things that happened according to the length of time that was lost to the production facility, we see there is a big issue. If we look at the number of occurrences, foot gap happened most. If we look at the time lost, the burr cost us most time in our production facility. So as a manager for this production process, I would be very concerned to look for an answer to the burr problem, but also to look for an answer to the foot gap problem. It didn't happen. That meant that it didn't lose us a lot of time, but it happened quite a number of times. So my focus would be on the top 2, 3, or 4 items in each of these areas to work with my people, to work with the engineering team to see could we find answers and solutions to fix these problems. I hope by looking at the check sheet you have seen the possibility now to capture real data in real time from your processes. The opportunity now exists for you to think about your processes, to identify maybe 1 or 2 key processes, to go and work with your people in the area to identify the key things that can and do go wrong on a daily basis with them in their process, and to work with them to identify how many times things happened and what is the consequence of those things happening. Beginning to create for you, with your people, a plan of action to fix and identify the real issues, taking away your capacity and making it more difficult for you to be competitive. We'll now move on to talk about run charts. Run charts. One of the big problems faced by management in industry is to understand, are things getting better or getting worse? Many people go into a business every day, work hard every day and go home, and come back in the next day and work hard and go home, and repeat this day after day. But in today's fast-changing environment, to just do what you did yesterday is not really good enough. It's important to be able to improve what you are doing and for your people to be able to see that they are making a difference, that your business is actually getting more efficient, more effective, and more capable. A run chart helps us to see over time if things are getting better or getting worse. It provides an opportunity for us as managers and leaders to be able to share information with our staff and with our superiors. If we can show that improvement is being made, It's possible for us to access additional resources. It's possible for us to help build the understanding and the capability of our people, to help them to be enthusiastic because they have seen the improvements that they have made and the impact that that has made on their output, on their performance. And also it can be helpful to show customers. What do I mean by saying we can show customers? If we have decided to engage in an improvement process, it can be very helpful to be able to show a customer, this is our level of performance when we started, this is our current level of performance, and we have an expectation to continue to improve that performance. By having the facts of the performance levels being achieved within your business by you and your people, and to show the improvements being made, it can give great confidence to a buyer to say, this is a company that they want to continue to do business with. The run chart provides a visual representation of reality. If we look into any factory or into any office at any moment in time, it's very hard to know, is it a good or a bad day? It's very hard to know, is it a better or a worse day than yesterday? The run chart provides a visual representation of the current reality. It provides a means and a mechanism to be able to show to people and share with people what is actually happening in real time. It allows us to be able to show the benefits of our inputs and to share with our people to let them see what their impacts have delivered for the business. But very much also, it can help to drive action. If we have a run chart that displays our current performance levels, that's good. If we have a run chart that displays our current performance levels, but also includes a target line, an objective that we are trying to achieve over time, it can help drive actions. If people know what they are currently achieving, but also know what they are expected to achieve, it helps them to understand what they still have to do to drive their business forward. My father told me it is no harm for people to know what they have done, but also what they still have to do, because it helps them realize that there is a further opportunity to improve and also an expectation. Provided it's a fair expectation, but there should be an expectation of what is possible. Driving action works from two perspectives. One is the perspective of the worker in the business, where they realize that there is a level of performance that they can and need to achieve. But also as a manager and a leader, by having a target line and having the visibility of what is currently being achieved, it puts a pressure on you, on me as a manager, to move towards the target. To work with my team of people, your team of people, to ask ourselves, what can we do now? What can we do tomorrow to improve our performance so that we can move towards achieving the target? In a very simple way, the run chart can be very helpful to help us as managers and leaders to drive action and to bring a coherence, a collective approach to our people and our business as we drive forward in today's competitive environment. One of the reasons I was attracted to the use of run charts was, while I am comfortable with numbers, and many of you are comfortable with numbers and numeric reports, it can be often difficult to look at numbers and to see the full picture, to see what the numbers are telling us in a pictorial format. If I show you this information about the miles per gallon achieved in a particular vehicle, it becomes very hard to know, is the mileage getting better or is the miles per gallon getting worse? A big question you may ask is if I'm interested in miles per gallon, I'm interested in when the vehicle was filled. Am I really interested in the sum of miles traveled? Am I really interested in the litres used at any one time? Which station it was bought from, or what the price was per fill? Maybe, just maybe, there is too much information being captured on this numeric table. And I would ask you to think about your internal reports and to ask yourself how much of the information that you are asking your people to capture is actually being used to either monitor the performance of a process, to monitor the effectiveness and the efficiency of a process, or is the information just being captured for some clerical reason that is no longer understood or no longer valid? A lot of companies capture information, capture data that they are not going to use. And to be honest, if you're capturing data and asking people to capture data for you that is not going to be used, you are only adding to the waste within your operations. If we take this numeric data and look at it in a graphical representation using a run chart, we can see that there is a variation in the miles per gallon. It was improving, now it's disimproving. What has happened? Have we done something? Can we do something to improve the performance of the vehicle? If we were to add a target line at 50 miles per gallon, maybe we would start looking at means and mechanisms, things we could do to drive towards the target line. Maybe it would be how the vehicle is driven. Maybe it would be how the vehicle is maintained. Maybe it would be the types of roads that we drive on. But certainly if we have a target line, we have something to strive towards. Without capturing the data, we would not have realized here the vehicle needed to be serviced. The graphical representation helps us to see this information. In other examples, we can see different types of run chart being used to capture different types of information. In this particular chart, we are looking at the yield for the creation of resin. And we will see fluctuations around the target line. It may become possible for us to look at and examine why we seem to be getting better than 100% yield. The possibility could be here that at this particular time, certain characteristics of the process were being run better than we understood was possible. So by looking at what is being done at these times, we may learn more about our processes. We may learn more about how our machines are run, how pressures, our temperatures, our feed rates can make a difference. When we look and study the times where the measures are below the yield line, we can also find and hunt and look for reasons and answers and opportunities to improve our processes. We might want to know what happened when we were at 99%. What happened? Was it a different operator who was running the process who didn't quite understand? Was there a different machine? Was there a different time? Was there a different pressure on the gauges? We need to understand the detail of our processes if we are going to find answers. But what is clear if you look at this graph, this run chart, is that approximately half of the time we're running better than the standard and half of the time we're running worse than the standard. Wouldn't it be very positive for you in your business if you could run at least at the standard of 100% output? And if you could understand how to get better than 100% output, would that not help you to be more effective and efficient, to build your capacity and to build your people's capability? In businesses, it's often important for you to identify clearly the objectives that you have in your particular business that are relevant to you and your business. And quite often people will have several run charts running at the same time for different key performance indicators or measures that are relevant to them in their operation at that time. And quite often you will see 2, 4, 6 charts, run charts being run at the same time in a plant, in an area of a business, in the office, on the production floor, in the warehouse, so that very quickly the manager and the team can see what is happening at any given time. In the graphs I have shown you so far, you will have noticed they were computer generated. A computer, the data was inputted into the computer by a clerk, the printout was produced, and the graphs were placed into the working environment. I would suggest to you there's a significant opportunity to use hand-drawn graphs. This particular graph comes from a medical environment. The context is not relevant. What is important, however, is the fact that the graph is hand-drawn. And it comes back to a piece of physiology and comes back to an old phrase where it talks about a person making their mark. Somebody has made their mark in the world. If you imagine a situation where you or one of your staff has to go to a run chart, a display, a piece of paper on a wall, a whiteboard on a wall, a graphic on the wall, and you have to put down a mark to show what today's performance was. It becomes very personal. It becomes something very real to you. You have made your mark on the graph to show what you and your team have achieved today. It becomes very immediate if you are achieving or not achieving the performance level required for the business for that day. If you have a target line on the run chart, it becomes very clear very quickly if you're at, exceeding, or behind the target. And it becomes very clear to you whether you need to improve your performance, or your team needs to improve its performance, or whether you actually have managed to exceed the performance and you can learn from that good experience. So hand drawing of graphs is a very powerful approach, a very helpful approach, and something that I would suggest you should look at and consider for your operation. We've spoken about individual graphs. This is an example of a quite sophisticated graph. If I talk you through the different elements of the graph, it might allow you to understand. On the top part of the graph, there is a diagram. It's of an engine. And on the left-hand side of the graph are a series of lines. You will notice these are actually hand-drawn over the days of a month. And the graphs represent faults identified in the production over the time. And it identifies the number of occurrences from a production operation. On the next segment down, we have the frequency, the capturing of the check sheet of the frequency of the faults. And down on the bottom segment, we have measures, hard measures of the extent of those faults. In this company, they have brought together a check sheet and a run chart using hand-drawn graphs focused on detail and providing management and staff with an awful lot of detail to help them drive the performance of their business over time based on real hard facts. Visual controls. As you move to develop your own operations, as you move to develop your business and its competitiveness and its capacity of your people and yourselves, the big issue comes down to how easily you can use visual controls. There is nobody who can tell you exactly what those controls and measures should be. It is important that you think about your own business, that you think about your own operation. You think about what is relevant to your customer, what is relevant to your own business, and that you identify what measures are relevant to you. To help you, a lot of companies look at quality, cost, and delivery. They look at the quality levels they're achieving. They look at the cost levels they're working at. They look at the production volumes they're delivering out, and they'll also look and see their on-time deliveries. But every company has to decide what are the relevant measures for them. In visual control, the more easily that you can see and that your people can see if things are going well or not well, the more quickly that you can adjust and change and develop your systems and processes to allow you and your people to be able to develop and understand how to fix and improve your businesses. I would make a point. The measures you choose to use today, the graphics you choose to use today, maybe and probably should develop and evolve over time. You should not force yourself to stay with the measures that you have identified today, this week, this year. You should be open to say, if a problem has been fixed and fixed permanently, we no longer need to measure that. If your level of performance improves, you may want to improve the scale of the measurement. If you're starting from an early place, you might be trying to achieve 50, 60, 70% quality, perfect vehicles or perfect products being delivered. As your performance improves, you may be trying to deliver 70, 80, 90%. You should rescale your graphs. You should now measure from 70 to 90, 70 to 100. If you're able to perform at 90% perfect, maybe you should rescale from 90 to 100. And if you can scale between 99 and 100, you know that you and your systems are operating well and that you have actually improved your performance and your capacity. A piece of advice, information or helpfulness I have given to many companies across the world and certainly in Europe is to create what I call the history wall. Many businesses exist for a number of years, many of them for many years. But it's important to have a history wall where the people in the business can realize that over time, they and the people who were there before them have actually taken steps to improve the performance of the business. On the history wall, it can be helpful to have photographs to say, this is what happened, this is what we were like, this is what our product was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. These are what our quality levels were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. These were our customers that time ago. And using this history wall, it's possible to create an understanding within the business, within the people, to show progress over time, and also to set an expectation. That if our fathers and the people who went before were able to achieve this, what can we do? What can we do today, based upon what they have given us and the support and the basis they have given us? How can we, as the current management team, as the current staff, drive to actually improve the business and to bring it further forward into the future? People development. We've spoken so far on the lessons with the UNIDO SPX program about people, because people are very important to the business and people development is central to the business. We need collectively to build the capacity and the capability of our people. The tools and techniques of the UNIDO SPX program provides a coherent, straightforward, sometimes challenging system. Challenging methods and tools and techniques, but proven tools and techniques to help you build the capacity and capability of your people. If you want to start down the journey of people development, the first question you must ask is, who have you got? Who are the people who are working with you? You must know who they are. You must understand where they come from. You must also clearly understand what do they need to know to do the job that you've asked them to do. If they're going to be trained, if they're going to be developed, you as the leader and the manager must know what they need to be trained in. Otherwise, how will they become trained? How will you know that they know what they need to know? You must ask these questions so that you can identify what the training they need should be. When you know what they need to know, you can actually talk about the development of your staff. And the big question comes, how are you going to close the gap? If you know who you got, what do they know now, what do they need to know, you begin to see what the gap is. You can clearly identify what they have lessons or training or experience they need to capture or they need to be given. How to close the gap is a big issue. But I would suggest to you that you create a plan over time. It is very, very unusual that a group of people suddenly need to be seriously trained to an extreme level in a short space of time. More usually it's possible to identify critical people who need to get training and support and to deal with those, and then to develop the second tier and the third tier of your people so that all your people can get the necessary training and development. To help you see who needs what training, at what level, and what stages they're at, in the support documentation, you will see an example of what we call the Skills Register. The Skills Register provides a very visual way to you to help you to see down one side who are the people that you have working in any given department. Across the top of the sheet are the key areas and skills that these people need. And the next level down on the sheet are the key things they need to know. So we now have on this one sheet identified who are the people, what do they need to know, and what is the detail they need to know. We can now use this sheet to fill in these 4 boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, for each of the key learning points. 1, 2, 3, 4 for transfer, 1, 2, 3, 4 for word and computer skills, to allow us to get a picture of how capable our people are in the use of these particular skills in these key business areas that they need to be capable in. To try to explain it a little bit further, if the 4 boxes are empty, the staff member is untrained or unskilled. This is how we interpret the Skills Register. If 1 box is filled on the Skills Register, that, as I say, is presented in the support materials available on the website and in the support book, if 1 box is filled, the staff member has a basic introduction to the topic. They have received simple training, a simple introduction to what is involved. If 2 boxes are filled, the staff member is able to perform the task under supervision and with some support. They know how to do the job, but they may need some help. They may need some supervision. They're not fully independent of the manager or the supervisor at this time. If 3 boxes are filled, the staff member is largely capable of performing the task. They may require some support and some light supervision. They're almost completely independent. If 4 boxes are full, the staff member is fully capable. You know that they are able to do the job to the full extent that you need and you want. If you go back to your Skills Register and look at who your people are, what they need to know, and fill in the boxes, you will get very quickly a picture that you will need to create a training plan for personnel development. Because you will see very quickly where your gaps are. You will see very quickly where you do not have people trained in specific skills. You may see that you have 1 person who is very skilled, but if that person gets sick or gets injured or is not able to come to work or leaves your business, you may need to have other people trained so they can provide cover for the business. When you have completed the Skills Register and done your 4-box analysis, it will be clear to you who is going to be trained. It will be clear to you in what topics they need training, and it gives you the opportunity to identify when. By identifying when, you can plan and organise for times of the year, maybe when your business is not as busy, maybe when you have an opportunity to give people some time for additional training. The last part of people development, we believe, is strongly to have an understanding of quality function deployment, of getting the quality mentality to where it matters most into your people. To build your capacity, to build your capability, to build your competitiveness, it is important that your people understand the importance of quality, the significance of quality to your business and to your customers, and to the potential benefit that can give to you and your people to create a sustainable, competitive business for your customers into the future. Thank you very much.